It is time. Well, welcome. I thank each of you for being here tonight. This is our combined work session and regular board meeting for the month of February. So with that said, I ask you if you would like to join us in a moment of silence. And in this moment of silence, we particularly remember Joe Ruquette's wife, Debbie, who passed away this past week. Joe served on our board for a number of years, and of course, we all knew Debbie well. So if you join us in a moment of silence, I ask you to be in special prayer for them. Amen. Now, at this time, if you would join me in the pledge of allegiance, please. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight, we're pleased to have Orchard Park Elementary here for our school highlight, and Carrie King, who has been principal for 1 year. This is her first year there, doing an outstanding job. So I'm going to ask Mrs. King to come forward and tell us about Orchard Park.
I also have Dr. Dennis, our assistant principal here.
I'm just going to click.
Yeah, she's just going to click for us. Thank you. It's great to be here tonight and be able to highlight some of the great things that we are doing at Orchard Park. And we had a very busy first half of the year, so I'm just kind of pick some of the big things that happened our first half of the school year. One of our favorite things to do at OPE is to celebrate our students and all of their hard work. We have several ways that we do that. We celebrate monthly Warriors of the Month, kind of like Terrific Kid that we used to have back in the day. And so a student from each homeroom is chosen by the teacher for showing their warrior pride, or if they've shown the Chick-fil-A core essential value. We also have positive office referrals, and so those can kind of happen at any point when a teacher sees a student showing their pride, just being a good friend, or helping keep our school safe and clean. They can write a positive office referral, and so they submit those to us. And then we go into the classrooms and really make a big deal. We play some celebration music and really just kind of show off those students. And then we also have students who have completed their OPE Reads logs and who are math fact masters. So students receive quarterly, or they can receive multiple reading logs throughout the quarter. And it's just a challenge for them just to increase those reading skills. And then same thing with our math fact masters. And then in October, we had our fall family picnic, and so just a great way to get our families in the building. Our cafeteria staff, they cooked burgers and had all the fixings, and so it was just a great time of fellowship and just really getting to know all of our families. And I think we probably have one of the largest turnouts this past fall that we've had in a while. Just because of COVID, we haven't been able to do that, and so it was great. Our cafeteria in the courtyard, they were packed out. And then moving on, we were able to celebrate our veterans at our Veterans Day breakfast back in November. Our students, along with Miss Addis, our music teacher, put on a huge appreciation video that we were able to share, and we were actually able to include all of the veterans within our building, their families. They submitted their picture, and we were able to include them in our video, and just a great way to celebrate their sacrifice and what they mean to us. And then our students actually created, you can see some of them in the photos there, placemats as a thank you for our veterans. And so they love being able to show their actual placemat to their veterans. So just a great way to recognize them. And then throughout the semester, our fifth graders participated in our DARE program led by our SRO, Corporal Jesus DeLuna. And this was a 10-week program that our students participated in, and just a great way for them to learn how to overcome peer pressure, how to make good decisions using their DARE decision-making model, and then how to manage emotions under stress, and just a lot more. A great opportunity, a great mentorship with Officer DeLuna there, and then we celebrated them with was a nice graduation, so they were excited. And then December was very busy. It was hard just to pick one thing to celebrate, but we are a partner with Clemson Hope, and the beginning of December, they were able to provide Christmas gifts to all of our students. And so we were able to celebrate that, and we had a countdown, a school-wide countdown, and then the students opened their gifts, and literally in the hallways you could hear just the screams and the joy just overflowing. So it was just a great time, and we're super thankful for Clemson Hope and their mentorship and opportunities that they provide for us. And then in our district partnership, we partnered with West Oak High School and did Shop with a Warrior. And so we had over 20 students selected to participate in this program. And they were partnered, for the most part, they were partnered with a previous Orchard Park student. And they were able to go to the high school and participate in activities. And then they went to Walmart, and they were each given $100 to spend for themselves or for their family. And then they went back and they helped them wrap their gifts. And so just another great opportunity of just that local mentorship with our high school students, and just a great opportunity for our students. And then right before Christmas break, we held our stream night entitled Stream is More S'more Fun at Orchard Park. Sorry, I butchered that. Say that 5 times fast, right? And so students and families participated in stream challenges. We had, everything was centered around marshmallows. And so they were able to roast marshmallows. They were able to create snowflakes and make catapults. And it was just a great opportunity for our families, again, to be in our building. And then another thing that we were able to provide for our students and families was the opportunity to choose take-home readers. So in the library, we had books scattered, and they were able to choose books to take home to help them build their at-home libraries. And that's one of our big areas of focus this year is helping students to have those reading materials at home. And then for this night, they received a ticket, and once they went to each station, they actually turned in their ticket that was completed, and they were entered into a drawing for a huge basket of educational materials to kind of help continue that learning at home. So that was great. Had a huge turnout for this as well. I think over 300 students, I think, showed up. So, and another huge part of OPE that we have started this year, we have been hosting OPE snack and chats throughout the school year, just another opportunity for parents. And so each month we have held informational sessions on, some have been about technology. Ms. Wright, our school counselor, led a session on positive parenting. And then later this month, we're actually partnering with the State Department, and they're going to come and do a lunch and learn geared more toward our younger students. And so the parents are encouraged to come eat lunch for their student and then stay and learn. And it's entitled Letter Sounds Are Everywhere. So a lot of great things happening. We're excited for all the success that we have seen so far this year, and our students and teachers are doing an amazing job. And OPE truly is the place to be. Thank you.
Well, it's so wonderful to know how involved you are in the community. So many things going on with those students.
Of course, I was just going to remind you that Ms. King was the assistant principal there for a number of years, and y'all approved her being promoted to principal, and Dr. Dennis moved over to Orchard Park from Seneca Middle, and they've become a very good team at Orchard Park, and excited to have them there. They're doing a great job.
Well, thank you both so much for being with us tonight and bringing all this great information. All right. You had received an agenda last week for our February 13th, 2023 work session and regular meeting. Did anyone see anything need to be changes on it? All right. Then it will be approved with no objection. All right, and also last week, you received the minutes from the January 17th, 2023 combined board meeting. Did anyone see any changes, additions, deletions? All right, then again, those minutes from January 17th, 2023 will be approved with no objection. And now at this time, we have Mr. Lyle Carey, who is here with the nutrition group update for us. It's nice to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. Hopefully my phone will work for me. But anyway, so Want to just give you all a quick update on food service itself. I know it's been, I guess, about 6 months now since we took over the contract. A lot has happened in that time frame. We appreciate the trust in having us here, operating your program. So I just want to give you a quick overview of what has happened. When you look at the last 6 months, it really started with training, and then training happened again, and training happened again. It started with training the individual employees and getting them back into what is the National School Lunch Program. We spent 2 years, almost 3 years inside COVID feeding, and pretty much anything went. You could do almost what you wanted at that point in time. So we had to get them back into what the rules and the regulations were, what made up a reimbursable meal, all of those pieces of that puzzle. And then it went to training the students. You actually had 3 levels of students that have never gone through a normal service line, if you think about it. You had, part of it, almost 3/4 of the way through the year here, students that all of a sudden COVID, school shut down, and they came back to school and they're in COVID feeding. And you had, kindergarten classes, for 2 years that never went through, and then you had this year's kindergarten class. So we had to teach all of them, plus re-educate the existing students on how to make that reimbursable meal. And the big thing with reimbursable meals is you have to have a fruit or veggie on your tray. So getting them to put that fruit or veggie on there, make sure we get that reimbursable meal. Then it really went to continuous training from there. It is, we're training the staff on a daily basis. We're still working with the students. We're working with the teachers, with administration on trying to push the programs forward as we go through, throughout the year. The next phase of everything was employee retention and movement of employees. There has been some employee turnover here. There's no doubt that occurred. But we're moving in the right direction and we're hiring on a constant basis. So anybody out there that's listening, you want a job, we're here to hire you. We're looking for you. So after that point, we kind of get back to, the COVID, the differences between COVID. That's the big change that has, caused and concern this past year. And now, just the menu changes, the menus adjustments that we have made. And I think what you'll see in a later slide, have been very positive for the district, moving forward. Looking as we go through the rest of the school year and getting into next year, we're looking at getting more of our programs really getting going. We'll look at doing some Wellness Wednesday programs in the elementary, introduces different fruits and veggies to the kids. It's a way of us, doing some teaching on healthy eating and those type of programs. We'll do some special events as well on the secondary levels. And the elementaries. Look at getting our mascot in, hopefully before the end of the school year as well into the elementaries. If we can get the costumes down for that purpose. And then we're actually going to do a special event next week. We're doing a student taste testing, so it's something that we are required to do every single year. We choose different districts. So we're actually doing a taste testing on Tuesday morning at Walhalla High School. So you all are welcome to attend. We would love to have you there. You can taste and test some new products that are possibly coming in for next year. There's lots of changes going on. I don't know if anybody is really that read up on the new news in the National School Lunch Program, but they did put out proposed rules for the new changes and regulations. So there are some more stringent guidelines coming into place. So some of this helps take care of that process for us. And then, just expanding our menu offerings. One of the things we were actually talking about earlier was, we're moving into rotating food bars. You guys had nacho bars in your secondary buildings on a regular basis. You'll start to see that change a little bit. We'll be doing baked potato bars and pasta bars and some different choices out there for the kids. Give them some different, flavors going on. So some pictures, these are actual pictures. These are all stuff from your service lines. Fresh fruits and veggies are a big proponent of our programs. Something that we sell, we like to do show plates to show the kids what they can, get on that day and what can get put onto their service, on their tray. Our area enhancement is sitting up there, secondary and elementary. For whatever reason, they didn't have a middle school picture, and I'm not sure why. I'll have to rectify that problem. Some more pictures. We actually make our pizza from scratch. It is a pre-sheeted dough. They actually have to proof it. They have to twist the crust and make the sauce. The sauce is actually made from scratch. And then, cheese and bake the whole thing. It's the #1 seller. And you can see, the salads. The pizza, actually, the action station on the pizza, that's from Seneca Middle, as well as the salads. That's both from Seneca Middle. I can tell you those 2 pictures off the top of my head. So to give you a little idea on participation-wise, far right column, that is your budget. That is what was budgeted. That was based off of what the district was doing prior to COVID. with your previous vendor. You can see, year-to-date numbers, January is continuing to grow off of that. We have made big strides in your participation. You're looking at about 6.5% increase in breakfast participation and 4.5%, somewhere around there, in lunch participation. A la carte was not a big push for me in the beginning of the year. Now we're starting to bring in some of those different items and starting to get some of that stuff in, and we're seeing a la carte grow as well. But overall, I mean, the program is very healthy from a financial standpoint for you all. I hope that you all are enjoying, the program from, our services from that standpoint. We've had some bumps in the road, as is expected with a change, but I think overall, the staff has been wonderful. They are a fabulous group of people, great to work with. So, and then there's all the contacts you ever need, so if you want to take a picture, I pretty much answer my phone most of the time. But, your staff on site, some of you have probably met Sean and Adam, they're your two chefs that are here. And then LaCosta and Jessica were both here, prior to the previous company, so. Some longevity and some new blood, it's always good. So, any questions for me? Short, sweet, and to the point?
And I'll just tell you, I'm aware of a couple of the mistakes that have been made, but overall, the feedback I've gotten is people are very happy with the meals and the food quality, so I think it's a good thing. We've got a lot of positive momentum to make the meals program very good for our students, and it is important. We want to teach our kids to eat healthy and to eat their fruits and vegetables, and it's a part of education.
That's cool. Kids don't eat, don't learn, so.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming and being here tonight. This looks very positive.
Good, thank you. Have a good night. If you ever need anything, I'm a phone call away, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much. Next, we have one of our own, Heather Davis from West Oak High School, who is a career specialist now, is going to come and give us a presentation on the career specialist.
Okay, so she has been kind enough to let me drive from her computer tonight. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come and share some exciting things that we have going on in our schools. Ms. Simmons had asked me to come and speak about our new career assessment that the district has recently purchased for us, and things are going exceptionally well. I am Heather Davis. I'm the career specialist at West Oak High School. So prior to our new program is called U Science, and I want you to see the real results, so I'm actually going to show you mine. We have had SCOAS, which has been a great career assessment program, but the information was so generic. It was hard to kind of guide the conversation with students if they were unsure of what they wanted to do. And we only really had a tool to guide the conversation from the perspective of, what do you like? What do you want to do? Well, that's a big question for teenagers. What do you want to do for the rest of your life? Not only are they unsure, but sometimes they're even unsure of the options that they have available to them. U Science gives us an opportunity to guide that conversation with, what are you good at? What type of personality do you have? Do you enjoy working with others? Do you enjoy independent? Do you enjoy numbers? Do you enjoy indoors, outdoors? All of these types of questions, because U Science is based on what's called aptitudes. And aptitudes is what you are naturally good at. And we don't really think about that, but you look at small children when they're picking up a pencil or a ball, whether they're right-handed or left-handed. We don't teach that to them. It's just what naturally feels good. And so that's kind of what this aptitude is. It was tedious. We are learning how to roll this program out. It is a series of 11 brain games. So, it's one of those kind of things, like when I was taking the assessments, I was like, okay, now what's next? It is pretty intense, but I think we do have to have something more in depth to have valid results that we can use. The parents have just loved this. We're in the middle of IGP meetings right now, and so, I can pull up when I'm getting ready to show you this dashboard and talk to parents. I always tell them, this is great dinner table conversation. Your teenagers, what you do? I don't know. What kind of classes are you wanting to take next year? I don't know. This helps foster that conversation, and it gives parents something concrete. Parents like to have things in their hands. So I'll just kind of show you after this series of brain games, every single one of our students who participates in the U Science, and we did have an altered bell schedule, so every student had dedicated time in a classroom setting with no distractions to complete these brain games. So this is what it gives to them. You'll notice the language is very positive, which I also love. Our students, we think that they may be confident in what they're doing, but sometimes not so much. But U Science, everything is positive language. So they can go to their results. And of course, it tells you, you crushed it. Great job. So these are your talents. The biggest pieces of the pie is, of course, what I encourage students to look at, because that's where their strengths are. Now, again, this is based on their aptitudes, what they're naturally good at. They can click on each piece of the pie, and it gives a brief overview. Now, if y'all know teenagers, they like the little bullets. They want quick, easy information. Now, if they're their parent and they want to explore a little bit more, for each piece of the pie, they can click Explore, and then it tells them even more about that. Again, it's so user-friendly for teenagers. They know their audience. There's just bullet points of information, what you are good at, and I love this part. How does it impact my life? Not only is it talking about from their work standpoint, school, social, things that I may find easy for myself, things that are difficult, I might find difficult, tips for success. It's funny, I was reading through this and looking at myself, and you don't sometimes realize how much things that your personality and your social life carries over into your professional life. Like one of mine was, everybody might not be ready for your energy. Okay, that's me. From the, first time I get up to the end of the day. And so it helps you be aware of that and how to use that in a workplace setting. So for each piece of the pie, they get to do some exploration. All right, so not only does it kind of tell them about their personality, their personal approach to things, and again, they can hover, just gives them bits of information, and then they can explore for further information. How you contribute to a team. So, I'm a liaison extrovert. I like to work with people in a team environment, collaboration, and that's helpful for us to be able to talk to our students about that. That is really the workplace setting today, is that team environment. How do you work collaboratively with others? Types of work that interest you. When I was doing a training for the teachers, it was funny because that social component came up in almost every single one of mine. So when I talk to my students about it and I'm trying to educate them on their results, that's important for me to know that about myself. I would certainly not be successful or enjoy my employment if I was isolated or working independently. So those are things, we're trying to have those conversations with our students. There are some more brain games. Our plan as we're rolling this out as a district is to layer that. 9th through 12th, took it all at the same time district-wide. Thank you for doing the call out for us. We appreciate that. And so then we're using those results to kind of guide these placement decisions during their IGP meetings. And then for those 11th and 12th grade, the plan is to have another layer before they're leaving us, kind of finalizing this information, sending them out with knowledge about themselves and careers. So lastly, they can go up, view career matches. So it pulls up just so many different, various, diverse group of career opportunities for our students to explore, because that's what we're doing. This is exploration. And so as you can see, my top are right there. Social worker and secondary teacher. It doesn't say career specialist, but that's what I do. That's what your day looks like every single day. And it's not going to say career specialist. That's another piece of the puzzle that we kind of had that conversation as students are coming in. It may not say something so specific that you're doing because not everywhere offers that particular job title, but we're doing the same thing. And I would say it's a good match. So you can filter this, that overall fit. You can filter it aptitude just based on what you're naturally good at. Or then you could filter it just based on interest, which we know sometimes our kids tell us what they want to do does not match what they necessarily would be successful in. So you can scroll down. It changes colors. Of course, the green is your strong overall fit. Then you can go down to a fair overall fit. Again, just looking at that, everything is positive language. It's not telling you not a good fit, but my least overall fair fit is labeled fair overall fit. So they can see all of those various career options. It's a great way for them to explore. So if they see something that's of interest to them, they can click on it. It is a one-stop shop. Everything that a student may need to know, or their parent really, in having these conversations is listed in here. What's it look like? A day in the life. I mean, it's pretty in depth in terms of what does it look like. Here's some core tasks. You know, what would you be expected to do? How does this career fit you? So you can see on my aptitudes how I measured up on those first set of brain games, and then how it matched me. There's that social, okay, all the way to the top because I love the kids. It just makes me happy. And so you can see, you know, how did you score in terms of how it best fits you. Other careers that you may be interested in, how do you get there? That's the question a lot of times. We assume our kids know, and sometimes they don't know, especially if it's not being talked about in the home. So how do you get there? If that's something you're interested in. Educational summary, that on-the-job training, different licensing options, best majors, expected job opportunities. So if they want to live at home, they can click and it tells them, you know, for the state, if they say, okay, maybe I want to try somewhere else, they can see what the projected openings are there or compare the two. You know, we're close enough where you could look at Georgia, what that would look like. So national salary, how we compare, jobs within that career, and then what I love, you can save it, and once you go back to your homepage, is save careers. So even as a 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, that senior getting ready to go out, they can kind of save and come back and check back, you know, as their plans change or they're introduced to new things, maybe through the Career Center. So this has been a great program. It's just been a wonderful tool to help us guide that conversation with our students. So I was just going to show you specifically how we utilize this information. Before I walked out. So we're talking to the student, we're talking to the parents, trying to plan those schedules, and we are extremely passionate about having personalized, intentional scheduling. We want students to take full advantage of what we have and try and plug them in where it's the best fit for them. So we make a folder for every single one of our students. It just includes like their updated transcript. This is I make them do a worksheet. I tell them I'm old school. We're not going to do it electronic. We're going to put it on a worksheet. And so they take their results and put the information from their results on one sheet of paper so the parent and the student has something to go home and kind of have that conversation, guide that conversation at home about their results. This one particular, it's great because her top 4 programs is exactly what she put on her pre-registration. So I pull from the Career Center, it's Health Science, pull the Career Center Health Science brochure. They've done a great job kind of creating these little brochures for us, for students with potential careers, pathways, little QR codes, and just other, tidbits of information, course selection stuff. But it just goes hand in hand. And at the end of the day, the parent gets to leave with a folder full of information about how to kind of help guide those students. So I know that's a lot, but we are really excited about it. We appreciate your support in helping us ensure that our students are college and career ready, whatever that looks like for them. But this has been a great tool to guide those conversations. So.
Heather, once they've taken the brain test at the beginning,
Yes, ma'am.
how do they access the information?
So through Clever, yes ma'am, we have a single sign-on, so that was a little bit, I think probably y'all heard some things about U Science last year, but we did have to wait till we were able to get that single sign-on through Clever, so the students actually access that through Clever. I create a code for them. Another really positive thing about the youth science that we did not have with the SCOAS is they take it one time. Research shows that your aptitudes don't change that much after the age of 13. So they take it one time, so it's not just this repetitive thing where they feel like, oh, it's just a checkbox for us, that we're, looking more into it. But to answer your question, it's a single sign-on, and they work through those. And we split it up, over the course of a week to where they were working in that during an extended tribe time is how we found was best for our students to be there.
Well, it's just terribly exciting because just working with parents whose children are in college now, this is just great.
It is great.
Amazing.
They don't tell you things. Teenagers, they just, I don't know. And since you mentioned college, now y'all are going to have to make me hush because I love it so much. But they have an option where they can click on the colleges, and based on their results, it pulls up colleges, local colleges that offer their degree program. It even tells them tuition. Is it a 2-year, 4-year? Can you do a 2-year with a transfer? So just the fact that there's so much information in one click, I think has helped our teenagers not be so overwhelmed of where do I access this information. There's a section here for describing you. This is great for resume writing. We use it all the time. When kids come in, I ask them, describe yourself to me. When we're going to put, your resume together, what are some things that you would tell me about yourself? They don't necessarily know how to put it into words. Well, here is a whole list of terms, and we can use those to start that process. So it has been great.
And this is the first year?
Yes, ma'am. We just started it last month.
Great.
Yes, we just rolled that out as a district. So this is our first time with IGP meetings, and it's funny because I've already had a parent email me, can I have a code? Like, I want to take it, And so we let our faculty have codes. If they wanted to take it, they certainly could. The feedback has been really positive for those who have taken it. Most of them, of course, you're going to have outliers where it's not necessarily dead on. Maybe there was a distraction during the brain game or what have you. But for the most part, this has been a very reliable tool for us to use.
So do you think that, does this system integrate with our coursework to allow students and the parents to see the pathway to courses that have the industry credentials, work-based learning opportunities, job shadowing in their 11th and 12th grade year, so that they're like, yeah, I definitely want to go and job shadow here and get work-based learning hours and maybe only go to school for an hour.
Right.
You know,
Yes, ma'am.
it allows that kind of pathway.
Yes, that is a great question. So there's another component that we have rolled out through our Career Center where they're actually going to earn different certifications through these programs through youth science, which is just another piece of what they're earning already at the Career Center the industry recognizes. I had a parent meeting, maybe it was Friday, through the IGP process, and she left with job shadowing forms because of her dad is actually the one, can I get a code? To try and explore what these, different careers that had matched her aptitudes and her interests. So absolutely it does, yeah.
It's amazing.
It's really good. We're really excited about it. Of course, the kids at first, there was an educational piece, I think, to it. Is it right or wrong? Am I going to miss a question? Or, we had to just educate them. It's a game. It is just how you process information, how you see numbers, how you see 3D objects. There is no right or wrong. There is no, grade. No one's going to see what you missed. So there was certainly an education piece to it. But overall, it has been very exciting for us. So thank y'all for your support.
Well, thank you, because obviously there was a learning piece for y'all.
It was.
Just appreciate.
Yeah, we just jumped right in.
That much interest in our students.
Yeah,
Doing this, I think it looks great.
right. Any other questions?
Just if you're curious, career specialist, the state kind of put an initiative towards that a few years ago. So each of our middle and high schools has a career specialist. They work out of our guidance office. The state goal, I guess, is for each middle and high school to have one counselor per 300 students. And career counselors, career specialists count in that number along with guidance counselors. So we have them in all of our middle and high schools, and they have many responsibilities, but primarily it's preparing kids for life after high school, and advising them and helping just kind of what Ms. Davis described to us tonight. So.
And we can even break their results down. When we did our 9th grade tours, to kind of go back on your question, our 9th grade Career Center tours, the Career Center was able to filter the results and put students in their top 3 career clusters for their tour. So it was an intentional, purposeful tour where they went and looked at their top 3 programs based on their youth science. Not that they don't get an opportunity to see the whole facility or all of the programs, because they certainly do. They go on the 8th grade tour, and they do have an open house night where everyone is welcome. But, we want students to see that there's value in this and that we are reading the results and we care. So, yes, it is very purposeful.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank y'all so much for having me. Thank you for letting me borrow your.
And I also like Heather, she's wonderful for civic organization. She spoke to our Rotary Club and
Yeah.
just did a great job. So if you need anybody,
Thank you.
thank you for being here. All right. Superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And Ms. Bay is going to pull up kind of an update. If you remember about, I think it was 11 months ago, we had some elementary STEM teachers come make a presentation to you, and they just wanted to provide a kind of a follow-up and let you know what's happened over the last year. So I've got that, and we'll just kind of quickly go through this, but we are going to share this presentation with you, so you'll be able to look at it more in depth. Tonight, since we had a couple of other presentations, we'll just move through this quickly. And Courtney Sheriff is the one who shared this with me and who I've been communicating with. And she wanted me to emphasize that there has been growth. We have added 2 STEM teachers, Jay Farmer at Ravenel and Madison Lee, who I think is with us tonight, feeling way back there in the back. So we do have a couple of more schools that have added STEM to their offerings, which more or less means that the specials periods, the art, music, PE, STEM becomes another option for that. So our students, one day a week, go to a STEM class. And many of these STEM teachers help our homeroom teachers address the science standards in their school and just do a lot of hands-on activity. So it's a very good thing. You can see they added 2 teachers and several different activities. They're participating in fundraisers for local nonprofits and working to develop a common curriculum for our district to use that will help possibly, certainly enhance instruction, but maybe even spread it to all of our other schools. The question came up last time about all of our elementary schools having this, and it is kind of principal choice. Ravenel, you can see Mr. Farmer is doing that, and they're not a Title I school. It's primarily in our Title I schools because they get additional funding, which means additional positions, and they've been able to allocate a teacher towards their STEM programs. And you can see a couple of links there that you'll be able to click on and get some more information. And then I did want to talk to you about this. You can see March 14th, there's a drop-in. They started this last year at the Hamilton Career Center, and it was just a really, really positive event last year for our elementary students. And it's kind of a community fair. Different businesses and industries come and have, like Duke Power, I believe, brought their robot dog that can go in and perform tasks for them, and just neat things that go on. Each school has a station for students to participate in, and we're doing it in our Career Center because we want our young kids to want to go there one day. And it was just a positive night. We've had STEM nights at individual schools from time to time, but doing a district-wide fair made it bigger, better, and just a good experience. So you can see that on March 14th. We'd love for you to join us there. And then there's some individual information, a couple of slides from each of our schools there that I'll let you go through when we share those links with you, but some good pictures where you can see our elementary students in action doing hands-on experiments, and just really a good opportunity to get our young kids involved so that when they get to Ms. Davis and her colleagues at the middle and high schools, they'll have some good experiences that may even help inform some of their decision-making at that point. So just a really good program that we're excited about. I was over at James and Brown last week and saw the trout in the classroom through the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. They actually have a fish tank that they refrigerate the water, and they're raising trout that they're going to let go up at Table Rock later on this year. So just some neat things going on, and I'll let you look at that more in depth at a later time, but did want to spotlight that tonight. One other thing I'll mention to you is the planning for next year. We're in that full steam ahead. That means that Mr. Schickling and Mr. Hamby have had meetings with all of our principals as they have estimated what our student enrollment will be at each school next year. They go over the staffing projections with principals so we can start hiring. Mr. Leroy and his team, they've been to numerous colleges. I don't have a number, but many colleges over the Southeast trying to recruit teachers to come in and fill anticipated vacancies for next year. And then, of course, there's a financial side to our planning as well. And Mr. Schickling has been working on that. He'll share a little bit more here shortly about that. But we have a budget calendar to present to you here in just a couple of minutes to really get prepared for next year. It's sad to kind of, we almost put this year in the rearview mirror even in February, but it takes several months of planning to be ready for school in August. So we've started that. And then the final thing I want to say, of course, I know you all know this, but I'll just say this for the the audience and anybody listening online, the Seneca Middle property was discussed last month, and probably here in the next month or two, we'll work with y'all to get that on the agenda so a decision can be made about that. But the Dream Center, which is one of the two, I'll say, most prominent options as far as what may happen to the current Seneca Middle property, they are having an open house on Thursday from 6:30 to 8. And I wanted the public to know that you're not going to see the school board there. And that's not because they don't care. All of them are they've familiarized themselves with, of course, the rec programs in the city of Seneca they're aware of, as well as the Dream Center options. And they're going to be at state-sponsored training for school board members with school board members from across the state of South Carolina starting on Thursday through Sunday. So they'll be out of town. Just kind of coincidence that it was scheduled that night. But this is a night we want the community, anybody in the city of Seneca in particular that has concerns about what happens with that old facility. It's a chance to become more informed with the Dream Center options, what their vision for that building would be. So I would encourage people to get out because there's certainly positives on both sides of that, and we met last week about possibilities of collaboration with that building between the city and the Dream Center. So we'll see where that goes, but that's just an opportunity for any citizen in Seneca or in the county in general who wants to learn more about the Dream Center Thursday night. Please avail yourself to that because it should be a good experience and a good opportunity to learn more about what could happen in the Seneca Middle facility after we move into our new facility shortly. So that's all I have.
And that is at Seneca Middle School.
It's at Seneca Middle School in the gym. So any citizen, it's open to the public, so anybody can show up and learn more. Dream Center representatives will be there. And I know the city of Seneca has shared their plan for that property as well. We'll try to get you any piece of information you need so that a decision can be made in the coming months, so that whatever happens with that property, that the organization will have time to plan and be ready to take that facility as soon as we abandon it. Any questions for me?
No questions. All right, Mr. Schickling. First of all, we've got the January financial report.
January financial report was starting to see the increase in the local tax revenue for the annual collections. So, largest influx of revenue there is from local tax base. You see our state payments at about $3.3 million, and then some transfers from the ancillary state funds and some of the excess cost from the federal government. So $14 million on the revenue side for the month. In expenditures, again, about 90% of our budget is payroll and related benefits, so we're pretty much looking at the payroll expenses for the month at roughly 9.5. So a good cash flow month for us after going, off of our fund balance for a little while without some of the tax collection coming in. On the disbursements, a lot of purchasing activity. Was relative to, again, capital, the pay apps for continuing construction at Seneca Middle, and our food services with the nutrition group that you've heard from tonight out of the cafeteria fund. In the general fund, primarily looking at our regularly programmed utility, liability insurance, supplies, things of that nature, relatively mundane purchases. And then the capital expenditure report is also included. And we are continuing to complete some of those capital projects that are coming from the county funds throughout the year. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Did anybody have any questions?
I was just curious, have we used the other CMR contractor at all on anything as of to date?
No, and the only thing we used Trail for was the tennis courts. So we haven't really had a project that's big enough to do it. Most of it we handle in-house or with somebody like Waldrop, who already has that contract. So we will look for an opportunity. We've talked with them, we've met with them, talked to them about our process, and we'll look for an opportunity, but we just haven't had anything that would be worth venturing to use somebody else at this point.
Any other questions? All right, then we'll move on with the budget calendar.
Okay, so this is my first effort at a budget calendar here with the School District of Oconee County. So it's largely modeled after what we have historically used as a budget calendar, adjusting the meeting dates for our meetings and for the county council's meetings. Included is the ability for first through third readings for each entity and final approval. So really working backwards from that timeline in order for us to execute that budget in a timely fashion. Some of the elements that we're going to be looking at here this year are what appears to be an appetite from the state legislature to aggressively fund teacher salaries to be competitive with the Southeast average. There was some talk today about, I believe they adopted a model for what the Southeast average was that they were going to try to compete with. So looking at that with trying to remain competitive at both ends of our scale, both for recruiting purposes for new teachers, but remaining competitive for our folks that have been with us for a while and our veterans with the district, and trying to do that within the constraints of our funding. So, I'm sure we'll have some iterations as we go through that and can discuss some of those elements, but that's what we've been working on for the short term.
Okay, I don't know about the increases in salary, but I hope that the state will help us with that if they say we're gonna do it. I wonder how they're gonna do it, because I think I just heard where they overestimated the state budget by over $3 billion. The fund balance by $3 billion, so, you know, that's a lot of money. And I wonder how they'll make that up.
It was a lot of money.
Get your pocketbooks ready, yes.
It's quite a mistake.
Yeah, I think part of the state's position is ESSER funds, which anytime you've got that amount of federal flow coming through can be difficult. I think the state ended last year with a $3.8 billion surplus though, so they do seem to have the cash available. They have passed legislation to increase contributions to both capital reserves and operating reserves. And so it appears that the superintendent of education and the Department of Education are aligned with the governor on the initial proposals. And that proposal would be $250-some million of new aid to classrooms directly. So we're hopeful that that would be the starting point of the conversation, and they do include in their formula a number of positions at each district based on the student enrollment. So, Mr. Herring, to your point, if they're going to dictate an increase in salaries, that formula should be accounting for funding those, or funding that increase.
Sounds good.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we're going on to discussion, possible action, and the first item is Exhibit 4, the bond resolution approval. And again, Mr. Bickley.
So this is an annual process for this. This is for the issuance of $20.5 million of general obligation bonds. Again, these would be, the payments on these would be supported through the capital levy at the county and the capital millage. We have continued to utilize that in a program to refresh our buildings, make sure that we've got some of the best facilities in the state. I can tell you, when I moved here from a different state, I was impressed by the quality of our facilities and touring them throughout the process. The reason that this value may look a little bit different than the value that you've seen in the past is, if you've been, of course, with inflation recently, but if you've been watching the prices of homes and commercial property over the past couple of years, there's been a market increase in those sales values. And so assessments are beginning to catch up with that. And that rising tide kind of lifts all ships. So as our borrowing capacity is statutorily linked to the assessment values in the county. So if the assessments increase at a rapid pace, our capacity for investing in our buildings also increases proportionally. So this is our calculation as to what that percentage will allow us. And it actually represents a slight decrease in the millage. So as we go forward, that's some of the conversations we're having with the Compass Group is how do we thoughtfully and strategically maintain our buildings and maintain that millage at a consistent rate that our residents are comfortable with.
But to be clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, so back since I'd say 2007, it was back when Dr. Truesdale was here, when we built Blue Ridge Elementary School. The millage levy for our capital program was moved to 31 mills at that time, and it stayed consistent at 31 mills from 2007 all the way to 2021, but it did drop from 31 to 30. And this would, in all likelihood, take it back to 31. So I just want to be upfront about that. We feel like 31, we feel like we can keep our buildings in good shape and keep our building program in place the way it's been. At 31 mills, we've not had to go to the taxpayers for any kind of referendum, and we don't anticipate doing that if we can keep it at 31. But I do want to be upfront and clear that would be the goal with this. Now, of course, this is our financial advisor making a prediction, but based on the information we get from the county, and that's what would, but not more than 31. And like we said, I guess kind of the way we've looked at it is it seems like taxpayers like consistent mill levies, not, ebbs and flows every year. We've tried to be consistent with that, and that's the way we built this program. So it would potentially go from the 30 that were levied this year to 31 next year if this is approved. Is that an accurate statement?
It's a possibility. It's not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee. It could stay.
Right.
But it depends on the value of a mill, which is not set until, after September, August, September, something.
Second meeting in September.
Does anyone have any questions on this?
If at all possible, we really need to go ahead and vote on this tonight. So if you have any questions, this is kind of standard for us, and we have been at 31 mills for so long, until 2021. All right, if there are no questions, then let's go ahead and we can vote on this tonight.
That'd be great.
All right, so I would need a motion authorizing the issuance and sale of not to exceed $20,500,000 in general obligation bonds, Series 2023, or other series as appropriate to the School District of Oconee County.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Any questions at all? All right, all in favor? All right, thank you. Mr. Hanvey, if you will explain our lawsuit update.
I will. So it's been about a 2-year process, but you remember we joined in a class action lawsuit against Juul, the manufacturer of the vapes, but because of a targeted campaign for our young kids. And there were about 5,000 in the same lawsuit that we're in. Well, they reached a settlement in December with the folks from Juul. And so what they've sent us is we don't have the settlement agreement at this point, but it's not like we can negotiate our part of it anyway. They're going to get the lawyer fees off the top, and then they're going to take the rest of the money that is available. And the plaintiffs are going to get that proportionately based on the number of students you have, number of participants, to be used hopefully for something like a vape prevention, education program, that kind of thing. At this point, again, we do not have a dollar amount. I don't expect it to be a tremendous amount of money, but it was more the principle of the lawsuit to get that stopped with our targeting of kids, and we still have an issue with vapes throughout the school district. But what they told us is we would have a quick turnaround, so we need to inform our board that the agreement was coming, and that if we wanted to be a part of that settlement, then you guys have to officially say that we want to be a part of that settlement and accept whatever part that we get out of that lawsuit.
And as Mr. Hain explained to me, if we don't accept it, then we just get nothing and go somewhere else. But,
Right.
and we have no idea what it might be, but it is a portion of the settlement.
And it's as much symbolic as anything, to know that we still are wanting to fight that fight for our students.
Yeah, and I mean, the American justice system is set up this way somewhat, but it's, instead of seeing it as a revenue stream for us, it's really a punishment for Jewel for the unethical, immoral practices that they put in place to target young kids to use vapes. And we feel like that's warranted in this case because there's proof that they targeted kids to use those. And it's probably not going to be a lot of money for us, but we feel like it's the right thing to do because a company should not, they shouldn't do that.
Absolutely. All right, does anybody have any questions on that? Several years ago, we talked about that. All right, then, if somebody could make a motion that we support the Jewel lawsuit settlement, and Oconee County School System does want to be a part of that.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any other conversation about that at all? All in favor? Thank you. And now we're to the point where we have several action items. The first one is first reading approval on several policies, and the first one, Lisa Simmons.
Is not with us. She's a
Not
little
with
under the
us.
weather today, so I'll take that. And of course, we talked about this last time, but we just need to be prepared. We've had neighboring districts that have had some complaints about some books in media centers and instructional materials. We want our policy to be updated. Just a brief review. It appoints a committee, and we would kind of have a district standing committee that would be somewhat school-specific. Some of the members of this committee would be district-wide, but then others would be placed on the committee from the school if this happens. Again, it's not happened in our county in a number of years, and it may not happen, but we need to be prepared if it does, because there is a little bit more of a move nationally for people to question some of the materials that are used in schools. And it does have an appeals process where this committee would first examine materials that may be complaint, if they generate a complaint. There's an appeals process from that committee to the superintendent, and then the final appeal would rest right here with you guys as the leaders of our school district. So that just kind of puts that in place, and trying to be proactive and be ready should it come up. We have looked in the books that were, petitioned in neighboring districts. We did not have those in our library that we can find. So, again, we're not necessarily anticipating this is going to happen here, but it could, and we want to be ready.
I can't remember, I feel like somebody brought this up in one of these readings and discussion of this. Does this still cover if a teacher brings their own material, their own book in to use as part of the curriculum? Does that still cover this, covered under this? Maybe not necessarily a library book or media center book, but a teacher has brought it in.
Yeah, it's not spelled out specifically in here. We can do that. Most of the time, if that's just an individual teacher's class, that's going to go through the principal's office, and it could certainly go through our appeals process that we already have in place. We have a grievance process where a parent can bring a complaint to a teacher first. If they can't settle it there, it goes to the principal. If they can't settle it there, it would go to Ms. Simmons, and so on. So we kind of have a procedure in place that would be for an individual teacher's classroom. This would be more for materials in the media center that are open to all students that are just sitting on the shelves for checkout. We could probably put something like this in place, but I would say most of the time, if a parent objects to an instructional material in a classroom, it's handled at the classroom level. Most of the time, if a parent complains, the teacher's gonna say, oh, okay, then your child can do this alternate assignment. Occasionally, they'll go to the principal, and then they're resolved there, but they very, very rarely get past that. That's usually handled without going through a very specific process where a lot of people get involved.
But to follow up on Megan's question, if it did get past that point, would this policy apply, and can we make this policy apply?
We could certainly do that. Yes, we could. Our grievance process, Ms. Tranby, you'll have to help me. I know it goes to the superintendent's office. I don't think a grievance, if it's not an employee grievance, I don't think it goes to the board. So we would have to specify that.
Sandy, will you scroll back to the beginning of this? Isn't there an appeal, isn't there an appeal process in here? So number one, if you're gonna make a complaint, you have to have read the material.
Yes.
People who are reviewing it have to have read the material. And so isn't there an appeal process? So if you come in here already, in this policy right here, I believe there's an appeal process here.
Oh, there is.
So I don't know why that couldn't somehow just have a word in there that, because I know that there's something in here about the alternative assignments right there, procedures for handling questions or challenged. Library, it also says in that one paragraph right there. So if,
We need to change it from challenge library, media center / classroom.
And I'm thinking maybe just
Instructional.
overall, make the title of this library media center classroom materials.
So here's the one problem I see with that. If a parent objects to an assignment that their child gets from a specific teacher, I don't want it to go to this committee first. And this is the first place you take it. If you object to a library book, you put it on this document, it goes to the librarian, the principal, Ms. Simmons, and me, and it starts this process immediately. If a parent objects to an assignment in a teacher's class, I want them to go to the teacher first. I don't want it to go to this committee first. Because like I said, 90% of those get resolved just with a phone call from the parent to the teacher, and the other 10% really get handled going to the principal beyond that. They don't ever need to go through this process, so I don't want to force a parent to go straight to this level. Eventually, that process could end up at my desk, but I don't think our grievance process goes to the board from my desk. But we've also never had one need to go beyond that at this point.
so is there a way to footnote if a parent, so if a teacher refused to give an alternate assignment, for example, what would be the next step? What's the protocol on that?
It would go to the principal, and the principal would, in all likelihood, tell the teacher, you need to give an alternate assignment.
And if they didn't?
Then it becomes
My
an
point.
HR issue.
So that's what I'm saying. Should
I mean,
we
they
have a
would-
footnote to what is the proper, like even a question and answer thing? What
Sure,
would be the
so we have a-
protocol for?
We could do that, but that would be handled under our grievance policy. It's not just instructional materials. Any decision made at the school level, our grievance policy for students and parents is that you start with the most immediate person that you're dealing with, which would be the teacher in a case like this. From the teacher, it would go to the principal, from the principal to Ms. Simmons, from Ms. Simmons to my office. So there are already four levels at that point. The only thing that we're missing from that would be jumping from the superintendent's office to the board, because the grievance policy doesn't do that. Whereas this policy does. We could alter our grievance policy to say if it involved an instructional material, there'll be an extra level of appeal that would go from the superintendent's office to the board. But in my time here, we've never had that. It's always been remedied before it even got to the superintendent's office. Now, I've had some principals call me and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I'll tell them, but it's never.
And maybe what we need is a public situation where we have frequently asked questions.
Sure.
So then that protocol for various levels of grievance could be in there. How do you approach this, or what
Sure.
do you do about that?
Sure.
And that's certainly something we could add to our parents' page on the district website,
Yeah.
so.
And there's probably more than just this one. There's probably,
And there's some of that that's already accessible on the website, but we could certainly add information that's specific about if you have a question about a classroom material, here's we already have it for, say you have an issue with, sports issue,
Right.
how do you go through that process?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Spell that out already for
Right.
several different things on the website.
But might be good to have this also.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
And that way it would eliminate this getting
Yeah.
beyond the scope of what we want it to
And
be.
the individual teacher situations, 9 times out of 10, it's that the teacher didn't thoroughly read or watch or listen to the entire assignment.
Right.
That one came up earlier this year for me that was a podcast. A teacher had assigned a podcast that kids could listen to and then do some type of assignment around that. And the teacher didn't listen to all of the different podcast episodes. And some of them had language in it that was not appropriate for that age of student. But once the teacher realized that, it was like, oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't, no, your kid is going to listen to this. It was, I'm sorry, that was an oversight. So, and that's the way the overwhelming majority of them are. It's just, it's hard in today's world with digital availability of instructional materials for a teacher to be aware of every single situation. Now, we do advise our principals and they advise teachers that if you make an assignment, you need to have read, watched, listened to whatever you assign just to make sure it is appropriate for your students. But, of course, mistakes are made and we try to remedy them and move on.
All right, so we're good with that then? All right, let's go ahead and look at staff and absences, and we can vote on first reading and vote. So, Dr. Thorson.
And this is the parental leave portion of the policy GCC, GBC. And I do want to just mention a couple things publicly for anybody watching, and we'll make sure we get it in the minutes. Okay, I'm sorry. That is second reading, then we need to talk about this. The policy GCC and GDC, it just has a paragraph that basically allows us to put this administrative rule in, and that's what's down there on second reading approval. So we would still need to do GCC, GDC a second time next month, which just is the overarching policy for leave, employee leave. But then the second reading down there is the administrative rule for the parental leave policy, and that's what I wanted to put a couple of clarifications in. Number one, we're asking you to approve this for July 1 start date. So even though this is second reading approval, it would be for starting in the 23-24 academic year, which would mean this July 1st is when this policy would be initiated. But there will be a financial implication to this policy that we had not planned for and that Mr. Schickling will have to budget for. So that's my first clarification. And the second clarification is there is talk in the legislature about this being legislatively mandated to all school districts. Right now, it looks like the policy that they would use would be the policy that state employees have had for a couple, 3 years. I'm not sure how long that's been in place. But if that happens, then we would immediately need to adopt the state policy rather than the policy. I think this is a cleaner policy. I think it's very specific to school districts, and I think it honors students, whereas I'm not sure the state policy just for general state employees really was crafted with students in mind. We want to honor employees and honor their families and keep their paychecks whole, but we also want teachers in the classroom as much as possible, because that's when the most effective learning takes place, when the teacher's in the classroom with students. So there's some minor differences, but we think they're there for a reason. But anyway, just wanted to make those two clarifications. But I'd love for you to approve those two policies on first reading, which would mean they come back in March. And then the second reading on the administrative rule for the parental leave policy would be final reading on that.
All right, did anyone have any questions on any of those? All right, then on first reading approval, let's put those two together. A motion to adopt on first reading policy IJL, Library Media Center Material Selection and Adoption, and policy GDC, Staff Leave and Absences. If I could have a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve on first reading policy IJL and policy GCC-GDC.
I'll second that.
All right, any more conversation of those two at all? All right, all in favor, please? Okay, thank you. All right, and then the second reading, final approval on administrative rule. That is GCC-GDC-R2, paid parental leave. If I could have a motion to approve that on second reading.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve on second reading administrative policy GCC/GDC-RC, paid parental leave.
Second.
Okay. All right, and as you heard, that will begin July 1st, 2023 is when that will go into effect. All right, any more questions of Dr. Thorson on that? All right, all in favor? All right. Great, and at this time, if anyone has any comments from the board that they would like to make at this time, now is the appropriate time.
I'll just follow up and say that I was able to successfully tour the current Seneca Middle site, and as old as that building is, I was very impressed with our facilities specialists and custodial staff maintaining that building, and it's fully functional.
Anyone else have anything for anyone? All right, then that is the end of our regular meeting, and at this time, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for personnel items, employment recommendations, and changes. Do I have a motion?
So move.
All right,
Second.
all in favor? Great. All right, thank everyone for being